I will open our regular meeting of the Town of Saybrook and Wetlands and Watercourses Commission. Present, we have myself, Colin Heffernan, we have Sean Savage, we have Alex Bertrand online, I think I saw.
Yeah.
Yep. We have Milton Lisa, we have Mark Camarella, we have Paul Kay, we have Sandy Roberts, we have Stephen, we have Marshall Wilcox, we have Jay Coolway. Who sat last? That's the last time we had. Let's see.
I was seated in June. We were seated in June. Yeah, right.
All right, we will see.
I wasn't seated last time and Jay wasn't seated.
Okay. All right. Liz will seat you. Work? If we need a seat. Okay. Moving on to old business. Item A. Atlas Construction continues to show cause hearing for the cease and desist order on November 20th, 2023 at unauthorized activity within the wetlands of the 100-foot review area at 0 Old Middlesex Turnpike, map 41, lot 1, map 42, lot 3. Can we take both these items up at once since they're the same, or do we need a motion to do that?
I think you can discuss them.
And we'll hear that at the same time as item B. Application 24-014 Atlas Construction application to conduct a regulated activity at 0 Old Middlesex Turnpike, map 41, lot 1, and map 42, lot 3, regarding the restoration of the wetland upper review area, including the removal of trash, debris, logs, brush, filling and grading with lots of basic plant species control, and installation of plantings at owner 0 Middlesex Turnpike LLC, agent Marjorie Shansky, attorney, and we are considering act no later than 8/15/2020. Act by 8/15/2024, no later than 8/23/2024. Attorney Shansky.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Attorney Marjorie Shansky for the owner, 0 Old Middlesex Turnpike LLC. I'm here this evening with Michael Ott, our professional engineer from Summerhill Civil Engineers and Land Surveying, and with Derek Davison, whom I saw on the screen at one point. I don't know where he is.
He's on.
Yeah,
I'm here.
Environmental. We do not have with us this evening Susan Fields, our landscape designer. She's on vacation, but you do have her materials in the file that she discussed at the last meeting, and that we can, especially Eric, can refer to this evening. We're here for the restoration, approval of the restoration plan. We have information for you that Mr. Ott will discuss relating to our proposed supervisory regime that we have developed with Ms. Fields and Mr. Davison, and also to discuss the staging area, which is essentially the area that the commission approved as the regulated activity in the original permit. So with that, I introduce Mr. Ott.
So is it okay if I sit?
Sure, please do.
So excuse me, just for the record, I'm Mike Ott. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor at Summerhill Civil Engineers and Land Surveyors in Madison. And I just have a couple of short things. I think the commission's probably going to be really interested in hearing from Eric and speaking with Eric. But you had asked, I believe, at the last meeting about our ideas, correct me if I'm wrong, about supervisory options, I think is what the minute said. And so I discussed it with the owner and with Eric Davison and with Susan Fields, and we thought that initially there should be a pre-construction meeting with Susan Fields and Eric Davison present on site, as well as town staff and whatever consultants the town might want to have there, but that Susan Fields should be the person on the site all day during all work periods. Eric will not be on the site, but he will be available by phone to Susan. She has any questions from her. So Susan Fields will be the point person and while all work is taking place. So that's our thought.
Okay.
For personnel, I don't think it makes sense to have me there. I'll stop by every once in a while, but I think Susan given her experience and education, you know, her profession should be the person that should be there while work is taking place.
Okay.
And of course, again, Eric will be available, of course, by phone if Susan has questions.
Okay. My question for you would be, I don't know if you discussed this with your client. I'm speaking only for myself. I would, if they want to bring Ms. Fields out or Eric out or yourself out, that's fine. But I would want someone from the town who's approved the town to be on the site also. Well, either in addition to or in substitute to, but at the same time, while work is being done, either Martin Brogy comes to mind as someone who'd be a good choice, but whoever would be suitable to town staff has to have to be there. So that additional personnel is approved by your client.
Oh, and I don't know, maybe I didn't say it clear enough, but I think I did say that earlier.
Not just for the additional planning, but for the work itself as well.
For the work, yeah, I meant, that's what I meant. So I assumed you'd want somebody from the town, whether it was town staff or.
And we understand that the cost of that person will be borne by your client.
Yes, I understand.
Okay, very good.
Ms. Fields is going to be here. Normally it's going to be once a week.
No, I think, we discussed her being there full time. Anytime work is happening, she will be on site.
Okay.
But Eric Davison will not be on site.
Understood.
He'll only be there for the
He's on
initial, and he's on call. Yeah. Okay. And we talked amongst, you know, this wasn't my idea. We talked it through. They all agree.
I have a question, Mike, if I may. What is the latest date to have this completed by?
I don't know. I don't know. Eric might be able to help with that.
So it really depends on when we have approval to move forward. But obviously at this stage, it's July. We would want to do a September, October planting would be ideal. Fall planting is ideal. But I think first and foremost is getting the invasive treatment started. That contractor is ready to go, provided we can give the approval or get approval to start the work. But yeah, in terms of the installation of the plantings, I would say September, October. Whether we spread out the other parts of the work, like the trash removal, I don't think it's necessary. I think doing everything at once the equipment and everybody's mobilized on the site, and just doing it all together.
So end of October is when you expect to have all the plantings done.
Yeah, I don't see a reason, I mean, this is a question probably for Sue, but I don't see a reason why we can't plant this season unless she tells me that we can't get this nursery order in this year and it would have to be available next year. So that would be a question for Sue. But if we were able to get approval tonight, and we could, you know, explore the order that we have here and make sure we can get it. You know, that's the only limiting factor. I don't think the labor or the machinery or the people that do the installation is a limiting factor. It's just making sure we can get these plants ordered for this season. But I would assume, or we could break it up too. That's the other option. If for some reason they said certain parts of it weren't available, we could plant some now and some in the spring. Be nice to move forward.
Okay, I was just curious.
So, Marjorie Shansky here. I hear that in a way that suggests that subject to nursery availability and also inhibiting weather in case we get some sort of protracted hurricane season, something or other. So it would be my preference, probably too strong a word, to make it a soft terminal date that allows for those circumstances to play their way out with communication to the town at all times, so that it's not interrupted except by circumstances essentially beyond our control.
Understood. Thank you.
But if I could, it just occurred to me, it had not occurred to me earlier, but like anything, when you assign a single person to be on the site every day, it could be that Susan could be sick or Susan might have an appointment, or so just to avoid a problem in that eventuality, maybe we should assign a substitute, kind of a second person, just in case. And that could be, I suppose, people like think of as near air. But just so in case that happens, Susan has to leave for some reason.
Sure, that's fine.
As long as the town's okay with
That's fine.
somebody else.
What I think what I'm anticipating is to have the requirement, the condition be something like a representative from the resident from the town needs to be there at all times. And that can be someone who's a representative that is appropriate for staff. The staff can work out who's going to be there on any given day. Representative from the town there, and the applicant can have their representative from the applicant there as well, at their discretion. As to who it's going to be. As long as what I'm really concerned about is having that town oversight. Regarding the staging area, so if I'm hearing you correctly, the staging area proposed is going to be the staging area, the approved pad from the earlier application.
Yes, I think the idea came, as I recall, came from Susan when she was presenting last time. And so the plans I made for you, these are copies of the approved plans that were part of the initial regulated activity permit before the violation. And they show that what we at the time was going to be an outdoor storage area.
Yep.
And so I think it was Susan's idea that we use that area to stage plant material and equipment while this work is going on. So that's why I get these copies. The second page I only made because it has a section of detail on how to do construction. Those are, you've all, if you were on the commission, you've all seen those plans in the past.
And will there be fueling done on site?
I thought about that, and I thought if the commission were to vote to approve it, that I would suggest if you could make a condition of approval that no refueling happen on the property during this process. And the reason I think that's viable is it's such a short duration. It's not like it's a long duration, big construction project where, very large area where equipment is well into the site and that kind of thing. I can't imagine it would have to be, refueling would be an issue. So it just has to happen off the property.
I have one question. Part of the original approval, besides the gravel crushed stone pad area, was to the south building. What was the purpose of the building? What was going to be stored in there?
Back then?
Yeah.
Atlas Outdoor materials that they sell, like lawn furniture, and that kind of thing. Yeah, that's my understanding.
But we're not talking about a equipment garage.
Oh no.
Okay.
No. Okay. That has in fact, and we should state this for the record. As part of the restoration plan, this is not planned to be built. The only thing that's going to be built as part of the restoration plan is that outdoor storage area.
So once the restoration is started, and maybe we got through the first year of it or so, and things seem to be stable, then I presume that the owner can come back and say, I want to put it in the building.
I guess he has approval for it. Yeah, technically. Yeah, so he could build it at some point, sure.
Well, if he satisfies the restoration plan and the town signs off, then I would assume he could just go on to the next phase once he's satisfied that. I don't see why we need to come back to the Wetlands Commission if the restoration plan is complete.
And nothing in the restoration plan would prohibit. What I'm saying is there doesn't be overlap between the restoration plan and the approved activities. So,
just one other question about the crushed stone yard area that we're talking about. And then you got the building. The area surrounding the building, is that going to be paved?
Surrounding?
Yeah, because it's not, or is that?
It was never, no, it wasn't in the original application. It was not intended to be paved.
All right, so that's just going to be compacted.
It was intended to be on two sides, the rear and the I don't know what the direction is, but on two sides it would just be lawn, and in the front there was going to be gravel parking.
Oh, okay, so there's a parking area, and the rest of it's just going to be
landscape.
Landscape. Okay.
Yeah, that was the original intent. Mm-hmm. The outdoor storage area is the gray shaded area.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions from the commission members?
The only comment I would have with regard to on-site employees, whether they're from the town or the applicant, I believe you had made mention last determined that it could be any representative of either. Do we want to quantify that to be qualified representative? Because we don't want an inline employee either from the town or from the applicant to stand in that really has no understanding of the process or potential. So whether we add an additional word to that to say qualified or what, that's my only thought.
Landscape architect.
Well, I think Mr. Ott has proposed 3 different people. And I think that's very specific. So I don't think we have to go further on that.
Okay.
And I think the town would want somebody there that's either staff or Mr. Brody, or someone that Mr. Brody might say, hey, this person can do it.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine with
No,
that definition, but
yeah.
I just wanted to narrow down the window.
Yep.
So I'm just taking some notes that could potentially be conditions that maybe afterwards we can just kind of run through. But what I had from the Susan Fields will be on site all day during all work periods with Eric Davidson on call. In the event Susan is not available, Mike Ott or Eric will be on site. From our side, the applicant has offered to pay for Martin Brody. Obviously, Lynette and I can't stay out there all day, but I think we could kind of cover here and there, or maybe have our engineer, depending on scheduling. But I think we can kind of work that out as we go through maybe in the next week or two, have a pre-construction meeting when Susan comes back, try to kind of hammer that out at the staff level as to when it's starting, if Susan has the plans in, and then we can take care of it from there. So someone, I mean, I think I'm pretty familiar with it at this point. I think Lynette's pretty familiar with it at this point. I know more about Zero Old Middlesex Turnpike maybe than I ever wanted to know. So and this plan, so I think we can figure it out and cover the basis if you'll give us a little wiggle room to do that, and the option of having Rogi or someone else that also helps us.
Sounds good.
So we've got Susan Fields to be the primary individual on site at all times that work is being performed, with Eric Davidson available by phone and serving as backup for Ms. Fields, and Mr. Ott available as backup as well. In addition, there will be a town representative on site for costs paid for. That's good. Thank you. Oh, you have questions.
Okay. I have I'm wondering if we're going to look at the actual plan, but apart from that, I have some just very particular questions to further my own education. Mr. Davison, going back to your June 11 memo, looking at the map, I really didn't understand. You have, or maybe you could just tell me off the top of your head. You have a line that says delineated wetland boundary per approved site plan, and then you have delineated wetland boundary E. Davison 4-24. I guess I wasn't, and then you have a delineated. I was hoping that you could review this map as to where exactly is the wetland or wetlands. And additionally, on the planting plan, I'm wondering what happens to this piece of property over here, because you have one boundary of a wetland, but where does the wetland, in other words, this was all clear cut as I recall. I mean, from the photos.
So I think it's a little hard to hear you. So I think what she's referring to is the first part was the plan that showed the limits of approved activity and then the actual limits of disturbance. That was to demonstrate
the delineated wetland boundary versus delineated wetland boundary.
I can.
He's going to answer.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah. So the delineated boundary that is shown per approved site plan is what was flagged by Richard Snarsky for the previously approved development. But since the disturbance area went beyond what needed to be shown for that approval, including off the property, we had the wetland line wasn't complete relative to the disturbance area. So I went out, we had the surveyor go out and restake the flags that Rich set. Then I went from those points to the south and to the north and extended that wetland boundary to make sure that we had the wetland demarcated in all of the areas that were disturbed. So there's two wetland lines, Rich Snarsky's original line and then my supplemental flags to capture the disturbance area. Does that make sense?
Okay, so it's very light gray and that extends to the south, essentially. It's a continuation of the wetland line and it continues to the south.
Well, the gray shading, if you're looking at the planting plan, the black and white planting plan, is that what you're looking at?
We're looking at the map.
I can't see. If you could just turn your hand around so I can see. Oh,
You see it?
So you're looking at my map. Okay. There shouldn't be anything gray on there. The wetland boundary is a dark green and a green dash. There's a key at the, well, is it black and white or is it printed in color? Because if it's printed,
It has this gray
Color.
line. It has this gray line. All right, well, I was just looking for the gray line that you showed.
That's this gray line here is very faint. Those are the actual lines. So the shaded area.
And that's the wetland impact area. Okay, so
That's what.
the only thing shown in gray were areas of trash on the color copy on my map. If you're looking at it in color, the only thing in gray is trash.
okay, I'll ignore that. Okay, now the second part of that is, so you delineated one part of the wetland. Is the other side of the wetland, is that the orange line on figure 1 or this particular dotted line on this? Yeah, the architectural plan.
The other side of the wetland is essentially off the property line. If you're talking about the eastern or northern side of the wetland, that would be off the property. That's why there's no line back there.
Understand it.
The wetland extends all the way to the property line, so there is no boundary shown for the north or eastern wetland boundary line because it's basically off the property. Is that what you're referring to?
Okay, yes, okay, so that's what I thought. So I guess I want to understand here, why are we stopping at this boundary?
At the property line?
We don't have,
No, I think what she's referring to, she is indicating that her belief is that the wetlands have been clear cut all the way to the property line, which I don't believe was actually done.
No, if you look at the line on my map that says it's in red, it's a squiggly line in red that says current limit of disturbance. That's the limit of clearing. And that was transposed onto the planting plan, and that's where the plants are going. So there was nothing cleared, no clearing beyond that red line. If you go out to the site and look beyond that red line, it may look like that because it's not a forested wetland in that interior portion. It has an open canopy just naturally.
Okay, so if I've just heard you, nothing was disturbed past the orange line.
Correct.
Unfortunately, in the photo, it really looks as if everything is clear cut, but I apologize for taking the time of the commission, but I was just wondering what happened past there. Okay, so nothing was disturbed. So I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, no problem at all. Any other commission members have any questions? No. Okay, I have members of the public have anything to say, questions about this particular application? Any members of the public online want to personally wave your hand or something like that to be heard? All right, for once.
We do have,
We should speak. Speak. Is he waiting?
It's not waiting.
Okay, if he's not waiting, then we won't make him talk.
no,
Okay.
he has his hand raised.
Okay. He does. Okay, let's hear him.
He has to unmute himself, so I asked him to unmute. I just listened to him.
Sorry?
Mr. Picard, if you wish to speak, now's your chance. You just have to unmute yourself.
You
Yes.
unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Sort of. You sound a little underwater, but we'll see if we
Okay.
can muddle through.
I just want to be clear as to what was discussed relative to supervision, because what I discussed with Mr. Ott was that Susan Fields, who is our landscape designer, will be the project manager for the project, which would be someone that's ordering the plants, coordinating the work, supervising the work. But the intention was not to have her there on site, sitting in her car, standing around for 8 hours a day when that work is actually happening. If that is a requirement, I understand the town wants to have someone do that and wants me to pay for that, which I guess I can agree to for certain. But Susan could not be that person because she has another job. So while I would hire her for this, she can't be the superintendent on a site. She can only be the project manager. And she would be on site every day while the work is going on, but not for the entire duration. And if that's a requirement that we have someone there, Brad Hull landscaping is going to be doing the plantings for us. He'll be coordinating with Susan and other people from my office, but I can't guarantee you that she can be the representative of our company that doesn't leave that site.
Where I believe we wound up was that the supervisory role, we would have a town representative, which would be determined by the town on a day-to-day basis, depending on availability of qualified personnel. And then from Atlas's side, either Susan Fields if she's available, if not Eric Davison or Mike Ott serving as the available backups.
And your understanding is that one of those people will be there 8 hours a day, nonstop, while any work is going on site. Is that my understanding?
There's work being done, then the town personnel would be there. And then what I understood your representatives to report would be that either Ms. Fields, Mr. Ott, or Mr. Davison would be there.
In my conversation, this is Attorney Shansky, my conversation just a moment ago with Mr. Picard from the parking lot. He indicated that Susan will be the project manager, be there morning, noon, and night, but not on a continuous basis. And then Mr. Hull, the landscaper, the landscaping contractor, would be there at all times. And to the extent that there's a town representative there at all times, it seems to me that there is an intrinsic redundancy and that there will be a representative from the owner's side and from the town side at all times, but it will not be continuously in this field, is what you're saying to me.
That is fine by me. With that being said, what I want to be clear is that the town representative that's out there, if Ms. Fields isn't there or there is not a representative from Atlas there, the town representative will be acting then back as de facto foreman with stop power and with everything else.
There will be somebody from Atlas there.
Okay.
And if there isn't someone from Atlas and town staff that's on site sees a problem and calls for a work stoppage, would that be adhered to or would that be ignored?
Well, I don't think it would be ignored, but I think that in the event that were to occur, and I interrupt myself to say it is the commitment of the owner to make sure that there is someone there at all times that work is, that if it were discovered that there were a lapse in that a call be made either to Mr. Ott or to somebody from Atlas, and you can designate it. It can be me for like here, so that we have a chance to correct it. But yes, then it would be subject to cessation.
I want to just add one thing. We were talking about the fact that there needs to be an order placed for trees and the like and the plantings and everything else. I think that as soon as that is established, when things are going to be delivered, that the other thing that should be provided is basically a schedule.
It's a great idea.
Calendar that would be reviewed, I think, by both the company's representatives and also the town on a weekly basis, because, you know, you may have an initial schedule that says there's going to be work going on 4 days of the week, and then whether or other reasons it's cut back to 3, or the following week we're going to go to 5 to catch up, that kind of thing. So just that can be open line of communications on what the schedule is.
Communication is the key to the success of the enterprise.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's exactly correct. So and we spent a great deal of time, you know, between Mr. Davidson, Susan, Marjorie, myself, Mike, lots of people. And we tried to get granular. And I've been very concerned about this because our directives, when we had to go back and remove the trees, I thought there was some understanding that we would go beyond our 100-foot limit to get those trees out, and obviously that's not what
we can't hear you. The audio is garbled.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you a little better, sir. I think I understand what you were saying. However, I would say that we'll give you the opportunity to be heard, but we're not particularly interested in relitigating what happened in the past as much as figuring out what the plan forward is going to be.
I'm not trying to relitigate what happened in the past, sir. I want to make certain that the expectations that the board has, that we can meet those. I don't want to, you know, I've discussed it with Eric and everyone else. And Susan, I want to be very granular with you guys to understand that, you know, there is a great deal of work that is going to be happening in that wetland, big holes to put trees in and things like that. And I just want everyone to understand that. While I fully understand the town would want to have someone reviewing our work, it's a clip of the work, so professional, and if they have an issue, they should bring it up to Susan, who is the project manager, or our superintendent that will be on site at all times. But Susan will not be the superintendent on the site. Where we work, we have project managers and we have superintendents. And that's what I wanted to be clear about. And I also wanted to make sure that the town knew the level of disturbance that is going to be happening, not only in the upland area, but in the wetland areas themselves.
Yes, and this was discussed at the last meeting when we accepted the application.
Okay, so that's why, I mean, because the work stoppage happened because there was, you know, people didn't understand that we were going to, you know, enter in the upland area, never mind in the wetland area. So as long as we're clear, I just want to be clear on that. And I didn't want to set an expectation out that Sue would be there nonstop, because I would imagine she has to coordinate all the deliveries, and she will coordinate it with whoever representative is for the town. We will communicate each day on progress, what we're doing. And communication, as we've all said, is the key to this equation. And that has lacked in the past. But, you know, just to have a lot of supervisory people watching the work going down, and the concept, that was not my understanding. And if it is, then I have to hire someone else to do that, because Susan, in her role, is the landscape designer, and she is the coordinator that the landscapers are going to work off of, but she can't also be the superintendent.
Here's my proposal. This is where we can workshop this language as many times as it takes to get it right. Mine was going to be a supervisory role. A representative from the applicant will be on site at all times. Susan Fields is to be the primary project manager, with Eric Davidson available by phone and serving as a backup to Ms. Fields, and Mr. Ott available as a backup as well. And a town representative with stop work authority will be on site whenever work is being performed with costs paid by the applicant.
That's my understanding, yes. But I understand that Susan is not, she is the project manager, and they are the alternate project managers. But none of the three of them will be on site all day while the work is going on. That's what I just wanted to be clear. And I understood that your understanding is that one of the three of them will represent us at Atlas on site meaning being on site for 8 hours a day while the work is going on. And I don't think that was, it's certainly not my understanding, and I don't know that it's Mike Ott's or Eric's.
My understanding is as long as there is someone from the Atlas on the site, which means that not just the tree contractor, not just the landscaping contractor, not just the guys operating the backhoes, but someone in some sort of foreman capacity being on site who answers for Atlas to interface with the town personnel. That's what we're looking for.
We will have a representative on site for Atlas, and it may not be Susan the entire time. That's my point.
Thank you. Very good. Anything further? Yes?
So,
Very chance.
do you think that the words "or Atlas designee" needs to be in your little definition there, so that?
I have a representative from the applicant will be on site at all
Okay,
times.
that's great.
With Susan Fields being the primary project manager. So it may be that the applicant, if the representative needs to call Susan Fields. If she's not available, she's calling Eric Davidson. If Eric Davidson's not available, oh my God.
And I think what Mr. Picard is saying, or some person unnamed in the moment from Atlas, that there will always be an Atlas representative.
We'll always have an Atlas representative on site.
Yeah, but it may not be.
It may not be one of those three.
Exactly,
But,
which is why the or designated.
Sure.
And whoever the representative is will be at the pre-construction meeting and be familiar with the project.
Sure.
And the plan.
Right.
And
Sure.
everything that's going on, not someone just going
Yeah.
job to job, someone who's familiar with it.
So are we good?
I'm good.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? No? All right. Then I will make a motion that we approve the plan as accepted at our last regularly scheduled meeting with all the information contained on the plan, including the planning / restoration procedure, as well as any other information obtained during the application process, subject to the following two additional conditions. Condition number 1, supervisory role. A representative from the applicant will be on site at all times. Susan Fields will be the primary project manager, Eric Davidson available by phone, serving as a backup to Ms. Fields, and Mike Ott being available as a backup as well. Further, a town representative with stop work authority will be on site whenever work is being performed, with those costs being paid by the applicant. Condition number 2, staging area. Staging area shall be within the existing area that was approved as part of the applicant's earlier in the wetlands application. There will be no refueling permitted on the site.
Second.
Okay, now it's time for discussion.
Just one
Yep,
comment
sure.
on the motion.
Mm-hmm.
So if Martin Brody is on the site, he is not gonna have stop work authority. It's either gonna be Lynette or I.
Well, Mark, that's stop work authority if you guys
If you're
pick.
designating
Yeah.
him. So you would designate him to have,
The town will pick somebody to be out there and have the work is being performed.
I just wanna make sure that that's in the record.
The town designee will have stop work authority.
I beg your pardon for speaking, but I do think that because the fourth person, to be named later, who will come to the construction meeting and be familiar with all things, is that referenced in the condition as you outlined it? And I just don't want it to be ambiguous.
Well, we're requiring that there be an applicant, a representative from the applicant on site at all times.
Okay.
So that, with Susan Fields being the primary project manager.
Eric on call.
Eric on
Mike.
call, and Mike gets back. So,
As long as we all understand that the designated applicant, the designated representative from the applicant may be someone other than those three people, then I'm fine.
In
agreement.
we're in agreement. And the applicant that Atlas can have flexibility to have on site serving in a foreman capacity. The town will have the overall supervisor capacity, trying to build in flexibility, but with those two are going to work together, and the town representative is going to be the one that can say, well, we're stopping work, so let's get sorted out. Okay. Are we clear on the staging area? Is that language clear?
I believe so.
Okay. Good on that? Okay.
I don't know if this would be the time for it, but I didn't see anything on the landscape plan about the survival of the plants. guaranteeing the survival of the plants for 3 years.
Oh, it's not
our last.
There is a mention of it in Martin Murphy's letter,
Okay,
but should that be a condition of approval?
yes, it should be, that the site, the success of the restoration plan will be monitored for a period of 3 years.
There's language in the June 18th letter from Martin Murphy specifying, percent of survivorship. And
I think his letter can be incorporated.
Okay. So,
It's part of the application of conditions.
that was June 18th, 2024.
okay, so
Thank you.
do I need to amend my motion?
No, I think we just did.
Okay, very good.
I'm still looking forward to the opportunity to have some input into what the plan actually is. Don't know if that is part of the current
What do you,
to accept the
I'm
plan.
not-
In other words, the types of trees.
I think those are all on the plan.
I know, and I had hoped to improve upon that's the applicant's plan. That's not necessarily old Saybrook's plan. So number one, I still think that under the circumstances, old Saybrook should have had its own landscape architect look at the plan to maximize the plan. And barring that, I mean, I see certain trees that are being overlooked, perhaps in favor of, I mean, I don't have the depth of knowledge, but certainly we are not.
I think that Mr. Brody has certainly reviewed the plan as well as the first planting, and the applicant modified theirs based on Mr. Brody's
Yes, and I did
So-
go through that, but I think that certain trees, for example, I've said the sugar maple tree or eastern red cedar trees or birches so in other words, they're just fine tuning the plan. But I just say that I would have liked to have a little input, have old Saybrook have a little input into what is actually being planted. And apparently silver maple trees are not the hardiest things.
We have a silver maple. I see a silver maple. I see 2 silver maples. I see 4 silver maples. There's 4 silver maples on there. If you look in the.
Yes, no, I'm saying that they are not the hardiest.
Oh, so you don't want silver maples?
No, I think
Meeting,
that,
there was some
I
suggestions.
think the red maple or another, but again, that's just that is my input. I would have liked to have that input.
I mean, I for one, I know nothing about, do not know enough about trees to
I
know
know.
this. I trust that Mr. Brody does know. He probably just forgotten more than I'll ever know about trees.
Right. And I just thought this was a wonderful opportunity to really make that site beautiful, even more beautiful. So that's my comment.
Okay. Anything
Sorry,
else?
one other thing that just made me think, if they're unable to get some of the plants that are on this list, could you allow for some flexibility and consultation with Martin Burby on swapping out perhaps a different tree that he might find suitable if it is available?
Sure, I think that there is, everyone should work together if as unforeseen circumstances come up, work together, and if it needs to elevates to the need, you can come back to just the plan. Okay. Right. So we have the 2 conditions that I mentioned. We have that Mr. Brogy's letter was incorporated into the application. And
3-year monitoring.
3-year monitoring, which is in the letter per road. Any other discussion? Anything I missed? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Look forward to further progress. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Picard.
So we will come back and just work on getting something scheduled.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
See you soon, but not too soon. All right, moving on to new business. A jurisdictional ruling for an agricultural exemption at 177 Springbrook Road, map 1.6. Owner Alan and Leslie Tupman, hopefully I said that correctly. Action is to determine if the activities are as of right under the inland wetlands for farming/agricultural exemption. Mr. Tupman?
Nope, stay behind.
Okay, very well.
Attorney Timothy Fury, 43 Bellevue Avenue, Bristol, Connecticut, representing Trust. Actually, the applicants listed there are trustees of the trust. For Zach's benefit, who's sitting behind me. He was fortunate that his grandfather set up a trust that he has full control over about 3 months when he turns 33. For the time being, the properties in the family trust. It's an application for a jurisdictional use as of right, pursuant to section 4.1 of the wetlands regulations. The properties in the current assessor's records are 1 Overlook Avenue, which is their current residence. It's about 1 acre. And 177 Springbrook Road, which is 2.5 acres. Those properties have been merged into one property, which is reflected on the plan. I have extra copies of the plan here if anyone needs it.
I do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just so we're very clear going into this, this is not an instance of asking forgiveness rather than permission. Zach has followed all the appropriate pathways in getting the activities he's undertaken on the property. There on your wetlands map isn't a wetlands within what I estimate about a quarter mile of this property shown anywhere. And then, you know what, the closest one is on the other side of the highway, I actually believe. And I looked at it today. There were wetlands identified on an adjacent property owned by Mr. Dunn, and I believe he's online. Right at a point on the plan, and you can see on the plan where it shows flow of water on the adjacent property to the south. Mr. Dunn's house was built in approximately 2002. I don't believe he obtained or was required to obtain any inland wetlands permits for that purpose. He built a substantial driveway structure. You can see part of the driveway going up the side of our south side of our property. He put in a substantial piping and drainage system that drains right onto the edge of Mr. Tuckman's property. It's my personal belief, based on discussions with Mr. Sipley, who is our soil scientist, that although he said it appeared there was a wetland seep there that has been created by the inundation of water from the overflow of water from Mr. Tuckman's front yard, which is all grass and faces down towards our south property line, and the collection of water from his driveway, which drains here. And actually creates a drainage issue at the property. He's effectively pointed a gun at our property line of water that was never there before 2002, we don't believe. Mr. Sipley did the wetlands testing on our property, found no inland wetland soils anywhere on our site, and the report was provided, I believe, to,
I have copies of that.
Yeah, to the town staff. The documentation was provided to the town from the abutting property owner, Mr. Dunn. Does show pictures with wetlands flags. It does show written on it that the wetlands flags were set by a soil scientist who I'm told has a impeccable reputation, but there is no report that's submitted with it to tell us how he did it, what he drew, exactly where it is. So we're kind of guessing. And the bottom line, though, is this is a permitted use. So whether those wetlands are there, are more extensive or less extensive, we've determined they're not on our property line. And about the closest point, based on what we can see from pictures, that they are to the corner of our proposed barn is about 75 feet from where but we're guessing the distance from the point, it's 45.5 feet to the property line. There's probably closer to 75 feet to our wall, maybe more to his wetlands, depending which flag you do, if you can truly identify. But regardless, we are not affecting this wetland seep that we believe is accentuated and created by his drainage program that was put in without wetlands permits. But again, I don't think he did anything wrong. I don't think they necessarily required at the time. We probably should have been allowed to put a drain that is that close and impactful to our property, but that's not a wetlands issue. Mr. Tuckman, before he did the tree removal on the site, did consult with the town. They verified at that point there was no, wetlands. There was nothing preventing him from doing that. He began his work to deal with the drainage. Done a nice job. He's done what he needed to handle and repel the water that's been forced upon his property. The property is substantially revegetated now. It's not planted because we missed the season essentially. The barn is laid out. All that's left to do is to pour concrete and to go up. There's no remaining excavation or anything that needs to happen. It's all going vertical at this point in time. He does intend to plant green giant arborvitaes along the property line for both separation. He thinks it will help with some of the drainage and for appropriate screening of the site. The use for farm purposes is permitted. The barn for farm purposes is permitted. The use of the barn will be to store and prepare produce for sale. He has a mobile farm stand that he may go out to farmers markets and things with, and it will be stored inside. He does have a tractor and equipment with attachments that he could use for the farming. He does have a farm truck and a trailer, and he will have poultry at some point on the farm, but not roosters. He's indicated he doesn't want to deal with the roosters. He understands that he'll be seeking farm status as well with the local assessor. That is subject to review for assessment purposes by the town staff, and he understands. So he has acted appropriately. He's gotten the permits as requested. He's hired his own independent professional, who's also very respected, to verify the status of the wetlands on his property. So, if this was not a permitted activity, you should give him a wetlands permit for this use. But it is a permitted activity. It's an exemption to your regulations, and it's highly and before I finish, I just do want to comment on the July meeting in Old Saybrook, Connecticut. It's nice to visit there. I'm absolutely impressed that you have virtually every member of your commission here online, because I've been going to meetings all over the state, but we're lucky we get a quorum, and it's only because of the online people that show up just to make it. So
we are dedicated.
No, you sure are.
I've got a couple of questions for you. One, this is fairly novel for our commission. We haven't had one of these in a while. Certainly not in the scope, certainly not involving buildings. My first question for you is that section 4.1A of our regulations say that the provisions of this section shall not be construed to include road construction or the erection of buildings not directly to the farming operation. So my first couple questions for you, for one, are that the proposed, as I think it, the proposed driveway and the parking area would not be not as of right uses.
Well, they're also located well outside
That's fine.
potential jurisdiction.
Just trying to.
But the
you're here for
the one parking area you see is adjacent to what could be a farm stand area to give someone a customer place, the public to get off the roadway to
I get the purpose of it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, because you're here asking us to make a jurisdictional
Yeah.
determination that these are not, that these are as of right uses. So I just want to be sure that what we're talking about the same thing. As I read this, the driveway and the parking area does not would fall under road. The driveway certainly road construction, and the parking area seems to me is that one as well. So that to me would seem to be not as a practice.
I have a question if I could.
Sure,
Mr. Chairman. Attorney Willis for the commission. I just want to make sure, Attorney Fury, I know the neighbor apparently had some wetlands flagged. Has that been, is the 100 feet shown on your plan?
No, because we don't know where to measure from. All we can understand is we've got pictures of wetlands flags. We've got no report with those pictures, just a note that was created by someone saying a picture on a drawing that shows a wetlands flag and says flagged by, I'm sorry, the gentleman's name is on.
Rich Narsky.
Rich Narsky, who told knows this stuff, but I don't know, you have nothing in your file saying that he actually did it or that he issued a report that would normally go with it. So we're just respecting the fact that Mr. Sipley looked over the wall and said, yeah, it looks like a wetland seep over there.
And would that be where the water flow is shown?
We think that's about the exact location, because that's the end of a pipe where it says water flow, that square.
Okay.
And it comes out and gathers in that general area, which based on our measurement is either 75 feet or greater from the corner of our barn.
Okay, thank you.
But on our side of that wall, Mr. Sipley established there were no wetland sills. Actually, no drains.
I have a question in this regard. You may have done a report for any wetlands, but you're showing an existing swale in this broken red line. That a broken swale like that, which is a natural feature, is a watercourse, and our regulations are wetlands and watercourses.
So in Mr. Sipley's report, he outlined that the swale was a man-made swale to redirect the water. And
it doesn't matter.
And it was not a watercourse pursuant to the wetlands.
It can be man-made according to the definition in the regulations. I'm just saying what I'm reading right out of the regulations, that it can be man-made or natural.
As part of protecting himself from what is water being forced onto him by a neighbor, he improved what is a bad condition at his cost, put in dry wells and other drains to keep the water off your city streets, which was my understanding was a problem before and isn't a problem now. So, and I will have to look at your regulations, but quite frankly, under an intermittent water course, you typically have to have scouring and other benefits, having a rain garden and other features like that just to protect and clean water is not typically a wetland resource.
I'm looking at the line of Sibley's letter, the first sentence of the second page, where it says, I'm aware that the adjacent property owner has this area delineated as property, but from my observations on the other side off the wall, I concur that a wetland depression exists. What meaning, if any, should we put on Mr. Sibley's concurrence that a wetland depression exists on the other side of the wall?
If we didn't have that comment from our expert, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. We'd be having a different discussion.
Sure. Okay.
Because our wetlands expert said there's nothing on your property, but based on what I see there, there's a wetlands depression. We have worked and developed our site and sought this as a right permit because of it.
Okay. So where on, and I understand that you don't have the specificity because could not get access to the property because you own the property for Mr. Sibley to come out and delineate on your plan where that admitted wetland depression is?
All we can determine based on the photographs is it's somewhere around the back side of that pipe. But there was no report to go to go along with this.
Okay, I'm more asking about Mr. Sipperly's observations. Because he made an observation that a wetland depression exists. But his observation, which is, he's your soil scientist, and it's his observation, is not contained in your plan. Correct?
Without going out there to measure and determine, all he's indicated to us is at the outflow of that pipe, water has gathered.
Okay. Wetland depression, so
Right.
Wetland depression exists somewhere in the proximity, but no one has delineated on this plan where that is. Right?
Nor can we.
Gotcha.
Right.
Perfectly fine. So I just want to get everybody on the same kind of page. Okay. My other question for you regarding the regulations and the injury law. So the regulations allow for buildings that it does not construe to include road construction or the erection of buildings not directly related to farming operation. Now, this is sort of, to me, comes with 4.1 regulates or removes from regulation uses. Right? 4.1 does not remove from regulation necessarily structures unless those structures are directly related to the use. The question for you is, what is your understanding a year from now? Mr. Jumpman decides, you know what, 3 acres ain't for me. I want to use this for farming. I want to store motorcycles, like motorcycles. Use it to garage for motorcycles, love motorcycles. Who doesn't? That barn is no longer an as-right use. Correct?
If he intended to do that today, it would not be a building related to the farming activity. He's intending to use the barn as a farming activity.
I get the intent.
I get it.
But from my standpoint, in terms of the jurisdictional standpoint, and this is sort of something that I'm wrestling with, and probably a cadet right now, I need some time to chew on. What do we do in the future when he no longer wants to use this as a farm? Now we have a building tied to a use. The use is what is regulated, not the building. So if the use is no longer happening, we have a building without a permit in a wetland, no longer tied to an exempt use. What do we do with that building?
I actually think you're overthinking it, because what you regulate is the activity.
Correct.
Okay, and the activity that, you know, once it happens, it's happened. So
do you see where do you see my concern?
But you can't assume bad faith. So
I'm not assuming bad faith.
No. So Mr. Tuckman intends to have a farm area to develop crops and things to sell it on his site and off his site. He's going to have equipment for that purpose. He's got an area in site to prepare it, and that's what he's going to use for it. Now, if he next week starts bringing the motorcycles in there, you know, that's a bad faith thing. I think you could take an action. But if, you know, in 10 years, if it's
what do we do if Mr. Tuckman sells the property? Sorry.
Because that's not a consideration.
No, but the use is the consideration. What I'm getting at is the use. He's not getting the buildings are clearly tied to the use. They're clearly tied to the use. It says that it does not include the erection of buildings not directly related to the farming operation. Usually when people come in ordinary circumstances, they come and they ask for a building, for a permit to build something in a wetland. We go through the process, we do the pros and cons, we figure out if it's significant, we go through our whole song and dance, and then we grant an approval. If that property gets sold, the building still has an approval. It's still an approved structure. It comes in, it's gone through it. This is a horse of a different color because the use is what's not regulated. And we're saying that the use is what's going to allow it. My concern is, what do we do if that use changes?
You don't regulate that.
So the new owner comes in,
and your town attorney's here. I mean, I can only tell you what the statute.
Sure, right. That's one of the reasons why we're going to probably take more time than just tonight to look at this, is to figure out what we do and what sort of inquiry we need to do. And so those are my concerns.
But I would also indicate if we were in with a full-blown application, you should find this an insignificant activity and prove it tonight.
But that's not what we're here for tonight.
Well, I understand that. So, but these non-regulated uses are things that are considered positive by the state of Connecticut in your regulations. They're not things to be discouraged and dragged out and made more expensive than they already are. They're to encourage people to do these things, to have crops and farming, to not have, I don't know, I didn't look at your zoning rate, not have 2 building lots here with houses built along to maybe 3, I don't know. But the goal is to promote these type of uses, not to discourage them, not to penalize somebody because someone either constructed in a wetlands without a permit or created a drainage area that became a wetlands 25 years after wetlands became a regulated thing in Connecticut, in 1973. You know, he's going to be penalized because he's had to deal with this gentleman's water. That just seems patently unfair to me, and the wrong signal you want to be sending as a commission. This gentleman is spending money to alleviate what Mr. Dunn has done to his property, not the other way around. So, and we're going to look into that too, because water is a natural entity that people can shed, but you can't point a gun at your neighbor.
The one thing that I can promise you this commission is not interested in doing is settling disputes between neighbors.
Absolutely, and I get it. That's an issue. That's our issue.
I promise you that's nothing we're interested in doing. Okay, those are my questions for tonight for the gentleman.
I just have one more. I think there's some mention in some of the correspondence that there's a plan to put a farm pond on the property.
I don't think that's correct. No, there's no plan for a farm pond.
There isn't that. So that's not one of the uses that they want to put to.
That is not one of the uses.
Okay.
It's not on the plan.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
This is the plan, and to have crops out in the open.
I have some questions.
Go ahead.
There is a substantial elevation in that area that you want to plant. Is that going to be leveled off more?
You have to level out.
It is.
There's a hump towards the road. So I mean, I still need to finish the cycle there. There's some granite and ledge there in some area, yeah.
So it's not going to be able to level that off. You won't be able to level that off.
Well, I haven't really gotten into it, so I don't know how much of it is actually unmovable.
Okay.
Or so it's hard to say, but there is that piece of ledge there.
But is that out near the street one?
Yes, yeah.
That's well outside of the jurisdictional limits to no
My
activity.
concern is down the road, there's a significant spring brook coming out into the road. Your water diversion, is that taken into consideration? I see this red line, and I'm not quite sure all is understanding. The water seems to come down to the parking area for the farm stand. What is this for something PVC?
They have constructed an underground galley to control and slow the water.
Okay,
allow some infiltration, and
will that come out into the road? Because
it's prevented the water from coming out into the road. That was going.
because there's a huge gravity issue there, coming down the hill. And what are you proposing to? Is this an okay question to ask? What are you proposing to plant? How is the runoff going to affect the water in the area? And there's quite a bit down towards the road where there's a 30-foot concrete pipe.
Well, that's all underground.
That's all under?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm
So
concerned.
that's in the house area. There's not going to be.
I'm concerned with the runoff, the gravity again, coming down the hill and going into that area. I don't know what to call it, wetlands, but
Stormwater accumulates.
your driveway, what kind of surface is that going to be? Is it going to be asphalt?
In the beginning, it'll be gravel, compacted
Gravel.
stone.
Okay,
Until,
so it'll absorb.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, my big concern in that area would be the water coming out into the road, such as down the road, the other side of.
It's that Springbrook, that.
Yeah,
that whole
Springbrook,
corner.
but towards the,
Towards Racket.
well, the Racket Club, there's a couple of houses there. On either side of the road where the water comes out.
Yes, on the other side of the street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm looking to make sure this is diverted, that it doesn't go into the road and causing problems in the winter.
I have no intention of that.
Well, we're talking about.
That's addressed.
I have a question for you. You may not know the answer to this, but on the plan, it says that they would see notification for assumed street line. And that's putting out there. But it's an 18 survey. Is there a reason why it's an assumed street line and not a street line?
Okay. You
don't see assumed street line. Well,
Yeah, it's probably an old road. Surveyors have to determine where they think the street line is. I don't know how old Springbrook is, but the older roads, they'll go maybe 3 rods or 50 feet. I mean, it all depends.
Any other, Senator, were you finished with your questions?
Yeah, no, yeah, I just diverge on the water.
I just want to have one clarification. Councilor, you mentioned that there's a list of 9 permit by right.
Yes.
9 particular activities.
Section 4, yes.
That are in section 4 that are covered. So with the proposal that's being made, you really want to exercise, to me, it looks like number 1, which is grazing, farming, nursery gardening, or harvesting crops. That's pretty straightforward. And then the only other one that applies here would be number 7, maintenance of existing drainage pipes and residential properties, yada, yada, yada. Those seem to be the activities that are going to end up occurring on the site. I mean, conservation of soil vegetation, that kind of goes without saying. Okay.
Oh, I did.
We cannot have boats, anchorage, or moorings because we're a little far from.
What would you be growing?
Potatoes, tomatoes, corn, peppers. I'd like to plant fruit trees, apples, stuff like that. I mean, vegetables that leaving out.
Okay.
Zucchinis, the general produce line. I mean, I'm just trying to make another option for people in town to have something locally grown and even something that I can offer to local restaurants as well, like maybe heirloom potatoes, specialty things like that, specially colored potatoes. I'm very invested into wanting to start farming. I think it's going to be cool.
Yeah, I was curious. I mean, it's not really a huge area.
Yeah.
Like farming the way it is today, I didn't know maybe.
So again, I would encourage you, it's an as-of-right use. Something you should be encouraging. It's acted responsibly. And I don't think it's something that should be delayed. The family shouldn't have to pay me to come down here again next month to advocate for this.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I would make the comment of one of the handouts of the statute. It seems to give a great deference to farming, and what caught my eye is that one of the things that it states it does not allow filling or reclamation of wetlands or watercourses with continual flow. So it means to me that if it doesn't have continual flow, it's okay for the purpose of farming to either relocate a swale or some other, seasonal pond. I mean, actually, they do provide for even creating a less than 3-acre pond. But anyway, that's just my comment.
Anything else from anybody before we turn it over to input from members of the public?
I have one question.
Sure.
Now that the lots have been merged, what address are you using?
One.
Okay, thank you.
Back to you. Anything else? All All right, members of the public, I believe I see JT Dunn with his hand raised. Mr. Oh, we have in the back. We'll take live first, I guess. We'll take in person first.
My name is Sharon Baldy. I live at 145 Saybrook. My grandfather built that house in 1950. So as a kid, I know exactly where the water is. I know exactly where it's going. I know there were many vernal pools because I used to take pictures of frogs and other little creatures. I have a degree in biology. I'm not proclaiming to be an expert, but I can tell you I've been in the home for 38 years, and I know exactly where the water is. I know exactly where it goes. That is why the land was not built in the first place, because of the watercourse. And there were plants and other things, some cabbage plants that you only find in watercourses that were there before the destruction of the property. Every single tree was taken out, the soil was compacted. So I have no problem with Mr. Tupton starting a farm, but I have serious questions whether anything would grow in a compacted soil. If mycelium has been destroyed, the oxygen has been destroyed by heavy equipment. So sure, my recommendation is start with the farm. If something grows, then put your, 20-foot barn, whatever you want to do, but nothing is growing right there. If you come by the property, you'll see. And arborvitaes, to plant them is a bush. Arborvitaes is not a tree. It does not help any of the wildlife, any warblers. All the trees that were taken down were native, striped maple. They were healthy because of the watercourse. All that water that was coming down from the back was feeding into the roots of some native trees that we are trying to save at this point, especially striped maple. But all those trees were taken out, including their roots. They were all dumped by my property, some of them still sitting there with brush, damage to my stone wall, which hasn't been fixed, which I've asked since March, since actually February, which is yet to be addressed. I have a serious problem with what's going on. It is to value the property of my beautiful brick house that my grandfather built. My grandfather built Old Saybrook High School. My great-grandfather built that wall that was damaged. So, no, I'm sorry. I don't believe Mr. Tucker because all I've seen is lies and deceit. And I'm sorry I feel that way. I've got along with my neighbors and so did my grandparents and my parents. And to see what's happening is horrifying. To see that all those trees were taken out, that we have no more wildlife, that we killed off eastern screech owls that were in the biggest pine that Mr. Tupton said he was going to keep, which he took down, that now sits on the property, spray painted, free wood. And it sits there. That's horrifying. And I'm sorry, I come up from an emotional part because this is a legacy of my family. And I must stand up because my grandparents and my parents made Old Saybrook what it was. They built things. They had good relations with people. And this is horrifying to go through this.
Very much. Is anybody else in the live audience? Mr. Dunn.
Hi, I was born in the 60s, so I'm not sure you can hear me yet.
We can hear you.
Perfect. Okay, hit the right button. So I just want to clear up a couple things. My driveway is the original driveway for number 6 Drummers Trail that was built in 1894.
Mr. Dunn, hang on a second, please.
Roger.
Can you please state your address?
175 Springbrook Road.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Sure. So my driveway and the bridge and the pipe correspond with number 6 Drummers Trail, which was built in 1894. So at some point in the early 1900s, the driveway was paved. When I bought my land, it was all, it was subdivided. That's where all the streets were built and the homes were built and everything was done. And I bought my property. We took down some pine trees. We kept the bridge. We kept the driveway. All we did was make a left toward the house. So the driveway, the everything that was there, the pipe is, I don't know, 70, 80 years old. It's been there all that time. The only time that water has come out of the pipe were during the Irene and Sandy, and then that one event where we had microbursts across Saybrook, where when I was fire chief, we pumped out 100 basements that night. So no water comes from that pipe into Mr. Tuckman's property. It just doesn't happen. When you look at his survey, and you can see the swale that he built in March, and he marks it in the drawing. At the beginning of that swale, near the Sparrow property, there's a spring that comes out of the ground there. That's why he put it there. It's way past my property line. You can see it on the plans. So I sent photos to your group yesterday in a PDF. His soil scientist says he didn't remove any soil. Several of the photos you can see feet of soil removed for the swale that he built back in March, at least 2 months before my land was marked as wetlands, because I said, how can it not be wetlands if he's got a spring right there? So I have video of it, which I also gave your group. The water literally is coming out of his own property, and I sent you the topographical map for the town. And Sharon can vouch for it. She's got pictures and video. The water comes out of his own corner of his property, which is why he dug the swale to direct that water. Then he dug that monstrous pool in his property to drain the water backward and also from down the hill, while he dug the trenches, the swale, and then put in the 2 storm drains, and then he piped it. And I question whether that pipe goes to a dry well or whether it goes to the corner of Drummers Trail and Springbrook, where it sticks out several feet from the town's stormwater drain system. Because you can see the green pipe sticking out of the ground with a ton of gravel between that pipe and the street, kind of blocking the view of the pipe. So it might just drain right into the town's stormwater system. I don't know. That's a good question for him. So I know the gentleman that, all the waters, I'm to blame for it. It's all coming from my property. And I get your point, Colin, that you're not here to get in the middle of 2 neighbors. And, I'm perfectly happy showing the attorney all the videos and films that refute his own soil scientist's report that he didn't remove the soil and that the water's coming from my property. Sure, I bet some comes from under the ground, but it doesn't come from over the ground. And if it did, he'd have wetlands that his soil scientist would have found. So the water's coming from his own property, and he knows it, which is why he dug the swale back in early March. On March 11th is when the swale was done, 2 months before the thing was done. I'd also like to note in my letter to you people, I explained that there was multiple things that were just incorrect in the soil report, and I sent you the photos to show how incorrect it was. Not to mention that the date that he claims he came and saw and did the work at the site was several days, or at least 2 days before my soil scientist came and flagged it. And he claims he saw the flags. So the soil report from their soil scientist is, I don't know, the photos don't match the report. And I've got all the dates on the photos. I've got the videos. The water's there. He's been digging this out. Now, I realize he says he has a tractor. He's got a farm truck. He's got a thing. Whether that fits in 5,800 square foot barn. 5,800 square feet for a barn for this farm. So I don't know if anything else, your regulations might be different than zoning, but I don't know if there's other uses that can be done with the barn. Does the barn need to be 5,800 square feet for the tractor and the farm truck and the farm trailer and whatever? I don't know. But this whole thing has just been a mess since the start. And their soil scientist report does not match the videos of the photos, doesn't match the dating of when my soil guy came. And the water's coming from his own property, and I have the videos and photos to show it. So, we can figure about where the water comes from, but this whole thing's been sketchy from the beginning.
On the fire department. Any questions for any of the members of the public? Okay.
just in,
In response, I'll give you the opportunity to respond.
yeah, just in response, Mr. Tugman is somewhat hamstrung and not wanting to do much more until he gets squared away. Because start doing this more, we just start making phone calls as a problem. So he's been transparent with the town staff before the trees were removed, before he's done other work. He stopped when town staff had indicated, and they were dealing with vacations things too. Where they said, hey, we wanted to get this, we may be asking you to file an application, even though there's nothing shown on the town wetlands. We went to the trouble to hire Mr. Sibley. I was out there in late May, and I think things were put away before that. But either way, James Sibley's been doing this a long time, and he didn't find any indication of that. And he was on us to say when he observed over the wall, he thought there was a wetland seat, but he doesn't have the right to go over the wall and to do it. But regardless, what we're proposing to do is something as of right, it's appropriate, by letting us complete the work and have a farm, and do something that's positive, as the Commissioner indicated under state law, and we can clean it up, get it done, and get something viable in your community, rather than something that admittedly isn't as nice as the family wants to have it, and serving the function in your community that he wants to have it. So we ask you to take action, give him his as-of right permit, and let him finish cleaning the property up and do something viable with it.
Mr. John raised one thing that I do want to ask a follow-up question for. The proposed barn is a large structure, 1,500 square feet. And right, you have a tractor, a farm truck. Yeah. And you said that it was going to be used for processing the heretofore unknown whether we're going to plant.
Yeah, store there, probably process there.
Will be used for any purposes unrelated to farming purposes.
The only uses that it might be used unrelated to farming purposes is in the winter he may take his children's play toys and put them inside outside. And maybe that's beyond the farming purpose, but if you have enough of those plastic play school things, maybe that, but not no business oriented things other than farming.
What was the calculus to determine that this is a size barn that would be appropriate for farming operation?
He just wanted to get everything that he had remotely, inside. He doesn't want to have the equipment, the trailers, the attachments, outside. I have property up in Southwood, Mass, up in tobacco country, and half the people, because they don't use their tobacco barns, they have all their tractors and their attachments all sitting in open fields. Quite frankly, it's bad for the machinery. It's unattractive. The goal is to not have those things outside, to have them inside. They're expensive to preserve them inside when they're not in use, so we can use the other portions of the property for farming.
So how much? We're talking about a 3.2 acre farm, and that's the whole property. It's 3.2 acres, right?
Yes.
And the farming is not the whole property. The farming is just this line here from the barn towards this little sort of triangular.
We may have some activities over to the back of his house.
About what's the acreage of the farming?
I'm estimating two acres.
That's 2 acres?
Yeah, based on.
Okay, so 2 acres of farming. Other than the track and the farm truck. I suppose the trailer, I'm not sure it's trailer. What sort of farming equipment are we talking about in this 5,800 square foot barn? For the 2 acre farm. Because again, looking at the regulations, the building has to be primarily related to the farming activity. And I'm wondering, what are we keeping in this large barn for this small farm?
You're getting into the weeds of the business decisions of the person who's running the farm. But the store prepares produce to store, his mobile farm stand to store, his tractor and all its attachments, the farm truck, the trailer, and whatever else he might be doing with the poultry or those are the business decisions. He has to use it for the farming related purposes, but you're getting down into weeds that I don't think is staying in the proper lane for this commission. I just don't think that it's It's the purpose of these exceptions to the statute. And regardless, if it wasn't a permitted use, you should be, based on Mr. Shipley's report, based on your own maps, it would be an incident activity, and you should grant him a permit.
Different argument that we're having. I thought we don't have a permit application. We have an as of right use jurisdictional determination.
But it is an appropriate as of right determination. And these type of things aren't designed to place more burden on someone trying to achieve them. And it's and I appreciate that the young woman's that are family in this area forever. That's great. This land was bought, and nothing stays the same. And the forest was appropriately cleared with appropriate consultation with the town. And now it wants to be redeveloped to something positive, not 3 homes.
There else have any questions in light of the follow-up to the public?
Only that you got to call before you can walk. The fundamental question is that does the activity proposed fall within the exception? That's what it really comes down to. We got to get that question answered first. If the answer to that question is it does, really no further action. If it doesn't, then we've got to decide what kind of regulated activity permit they're going to need. I take exception to the soil scientist report where he says that existing swale is not a watercourse. It is a watercourse. Get past that, but we're not there yet. We've got to deal with the nature of the activity, and does the nature of the activity warrant the use of the exemption?
Mr. Chairman, given that it's not a farm yet, would we be postponing the discussion about a barn or structures to be built here prior to until after?
Well, we don't want to encourage someone.
Yeah, that's a
we don't want to encourage someone, asking for forgiveness rather than permission. But I understand your point is, at what point does it become a farm?
One of the things that's difficult is that the legislature and whatever basis they wanted to do things made agricultural uses farming an exemption. And that is a big hole in the well. And so what you have before you is a survey that says they're proposed farming crop in grass. I assume that's, I don't know what grass is. Well, I do know what grass is. But the second is the proposed barn, which would have to be related to the farming activities. And I think that anything that is done that is not farming won't be exempt. So for example, if you want to approve this, say, yes, it is exempt, provided that the barn is used for farming and that this property is farmed as shown on the map, I think you can do that. The statute doesn't talk about what if it's sold in a year.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously,
if they're using it for farming when it's sold, then it would still be applicable.
But if as you said, if the use is farming, then that use goes away. The exemption goes away.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, I for one want some time to chew on this. So I'm going to move that we continue this to our next regular schedule. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, continue to our next regular schedule. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Before we wrap this up, is there anything else that you would like them to provide to help you make a decision?
Yeah, I think some more information would be useful as to exactly what farming related, a greater description as to what farming related activity will happen in the farm. But that to me is what I'm chewing on the most. is that I don't think that the proposed activity, the farming, the tilling, the outline of the 2-acre farm, that's right. It's the nexus between the building and the farm that's where I'm that just gives me problems. Is that nexus between the building and the farm? And if that is indeed where it is, that's what's true. I think I've said it. So it's some sort of a more detail as to what the nexus between the barn and the farming is, other than what we're going to do farming.
A narrative, yep.
Narrative would be a narrative, a list of equipment that would be stored there.
That's a question.
Sure.
Would this be different if I had made the building, say, smaller and that it was within more than 100 feet of the boundary?
Well, certainly if it's in 100 feet of the wetland, then that would certainly, another thing that would help would be getting the wetland on that map to determine if we're even what we're even dealing with.
If we stay 100 feet off our property line, we know.
Right. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. That could be the whole ballgame.
Would that clear up the whole issue?
If you are outside of our jurisdiction, you're outside of our jurisdiction.
But if I'm within it,
then you're within it, and then we need to move on to the next step, which is your use, both for farming.
It would still be the same use. It would just be a different size farm. That's what I'm asking.
No, the structure would be outside of your jurisdiction. We can have that.
Oh,
yeah. If you move the whole structure outside of our jurisdiction, then it's outside of our jurisdiction.
Okay.
But for now, while the structure is inside the jurisdiction, or we're seeing this in the jurisdiction, or it's an open question, then my question is to ensure that there is that nexus between the 5,800 square foot barn and the farming activity that's possible on a 2-acre lot.
So I guess my question is, I think everybody's kind of come to a consensus that farming is exempt.
Farming is exempt.
It's the building that's the issue. So if the applicant moves the building 100 feet, what are we discussing next month? Just
because I'll do that tomorrow. I'll dig it out and move it tomorrow.
You do what you do. I don't know. Yeah. But to the extent that the farm, once we're regulating activity. Right now, we don't have a application to build a building within our review. We don't have. We have a proposed use that does go into the upland review area, which is farming, as displayed in the map. I think that's pretty clear. He wants to grow crops, sure. But to the extent that the building is or within, the building's outside of our jurisdiction, I don't know if they need a permit from us. I don't think so.
I think I'm going to do that, to be honest with you.
Just let us know.
So what does that mean for the next meeting?
Oh, they would go off the agenda.
Well, just to be clear though,
okay.
Depending where that line is,
right.
The land's cleared, you would have activities of planting and is that, this barn moves back.
If the barn moves out of our jurisdiction,
plant,
it may well be able to handle administratively if the barn is out of the program.
And I think that's what your staff is looking for.
Sure.
Can you make a ruling tonight on just the farming? So they don't have to come back next month if they move the building?
I think we can just wait to see what they do.
Okay.
I think that's the best way to do.
Okay, but we need a couple things. In order to do that, we need to know a few things. One, we need to know where the 132 area is. It has to be shown on the map so we can know whether or not that is. So those are options. If you move the barn, if the goal is to move the barn out of the jurisdiction of this commission, well, we need to figure out where that jurisdictional line is. So you need to know how far you move the barn.
We have no wetlands drawing from the neighbor.
Well, I think that one of the things that you mentioned was that if your soil scientist can say that the wetland depression that he says exists, if he says that wetland depression is more than 100 feet from the property line.
Well, no, they're saying they're going to take the whole barn and put 100 feet from the property line. So if there's no wetlands on the property,
if they've got the room to do that, okay. I don't know. But I leave such hypothetical things to the applicant to figure out. It's up to them. But I agree with council that we probably want to wait to see what they do before we apply.
But if we proceed with this plan if you'd like the information regarding the water.
Correct. Sure. Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This is done. Gentlemen left. So we'll move on to our minutes. And Attorney Willis, I think you are relieved.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Good time.
Okay. Moving on to minutes, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting, our last two meetings, the special? No.
Oh, June first, the first August minutes was June 20th.
Got the tough one. Okay. Everyone had a chance to review them?
What's the date?
June 20th.
June 20th and July 2nd.
Yes.
Any changes, amendments, anything like that?
I have none.
Hearing none, I move that we accept. Oops, Paul, go ahead.
I passed along the, under adjournment, I thought that there was a, either a run-on, two motions, or I wasn't sure what that was.
Which one are you
What are
talking
you
about?
talking about?
June 20. The motion to adjourn, and then it becomes motion to approve the minutes with the following corrections. So I think maybe.
Oh, it was a cut and paste error.
Yeah.
Okay,
so.
I'll just eliminate the second part of that.
Okay, so.
Thank you very much. Any other changes? Right. Oh. Hearing none, I move to approve the minutes as
Second.
any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, we move on to committee representative and staff reports. Anything from any of our
Yeah, you do the second.
So June, July. I was gonna vote once, but okay, we can move on to the July 2nd minutes. Any changes to the July 2nd minutes? Paul?
I would just suggest that in the under old business, the second paragraph, third sentence, historic trash might be
That's
replaced
the
by
word.
years.
That's the wording we use.
Okay.
That's the exact word we use.
Yeah.
Well, let me see. Yes.
Every year it's just sure.
Maybe we should say parentheses, years of, okay, all right.
Storage trash.
Historic trash.
Term you used. Sounds like a good band name to me. Anything, any others?
You know, someone might think we're digging up artifacts.
All right, move that we accept the minutes from July 2nd special meeting as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, those are approved. Moving on to our committee representative and staff reports. We'll start anything from conservation, zoning, planning, EDC, anything like that? No. Very good. Staff, anything from that?
No staff report.
No staff report. Any correspondence or announcements?
No.
Nothing. All right. Then I move to adjourn. Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Thank you guys very, very much.